Hello and welcome again to another episode of Battle Ready. And today, we thought we'd talk about the dreaded double turn.
Ba, ba, ba.
So for those of you who, it's been all over the internet. There's definitely people who really enjoy it. There's definitely people who, it certainly has its detractors. And so we thought we'd talk about the double turn. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, for the most part, Age of Sigmar has an I go, you go system. And what I mean is, if it's your turn, you get to do all your hero phase stuff. And then you do all your movement. And you do all your shooting. And then you do... Combat goes back and forth. But then and then the next person does their turn. And they do all their hero phase and movement and shooting and so on and so forth. And the way you decide who goes first, it's not like 40K or like chess, where black always goes second, and it always just alternate turns, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, black. Instead, there's a priority roll. So after the first turn, maybe it's, I go, then Drake goes.
Yeah.
But then we do a roll. So it's sort of a randomization of who's going to go first in the second round. So maybe Drake goes first in the second round.
Double turn.
And that's where the double turn comes in, because that means he got to do all his actions at the end of that first round. And now because he's going second, he gets to do all his actions again before I get a chance to do all my actions. So that is the double turn. I guess to be technical, it's a priority roll, and sometimes that priority roll or the randomized turn order results in a double turn. But that's really the issue, because sometimes you will get 2 turns in a row, and sometimes your opponent will get 2 turns in a row, and that is that has consequences on the game.
It's problematic.
Well, I think that's what we're going to talk about, right? Is it problematic? I think towards the end of the video, we're going to talk about ways that we can maybe improve it, because it definitely has its pros and cons.
Oh, yes.
But I thought we'd start by, as is, rules as written. Do we like the idea? Do we like the concept of the double turn? Drake?
I'm neutral. I don't really have.
You're neutral.
I don't have, yes, it's amazing, or no, it's terrible, everything must be changed.
Well, you were just talking about how it's so problematic, so you must have some thoughts about it.
I have thoughts on how we can change it so it's better.
Well, what don't you like about it?
I don't like how scoring happens at the end of your turn. So a double turn means a double score.
Yep, a double turn does mean a double score. Yep.
So if you're just hitting double turns, like round 1, you go first. Your opponent hits a double turn, and then it's just endless, he goes first.
Well, if he wins the priority roll each time, right?
Time.
But if you win the priority roll, then you get a double turn.
Yay.
So I think overall, and we'll talk about some of its flaws, and that's, I think, one of them that you mentioned. But for me, overall, I think the double turn, or the random priority mechanic, is good. And I think the game is better for it. And the reason I say that is, if it's purely I go, you go, like we've played games where no one's gotten a double turn before.
Yes, like Soul Blight, the Soul Blight Cool Boys episode.
Yeah, and when you do that, I don't know, you sort of play the game a little bit differently, because the first person, if I have priority, then I'm going to march up, and I know at most you're going to get 1 turn before I get to go again.
Yeah.
Right? So I can plan for that, and I can basically keep my screens intact, or I'll have a better chance of keeping my screens intact.
Yep.
All the way up. And the same thing if you're, the reactive player, before you get to go again, that other person's gonna get a move. So I think that leads to the game being a little more predictable than I would like. And I think it goes without saying, all of it is personal preference, right? I don't think one of them is inherently from on high better than the other. But I do like that you have to play the game knowing that, something could go wrong, right? And whether you create a narrative reason for it, there's, reinforcements showed up, or, it started to rain on my side of the territory, whatever it is. I like that there's a little fog of war element to AOS, in that I don't know if I'm going to get to go next or not. Now, if there's a tie on the roll-off, it goes to the person who went first in the previous battle round.
So
So there's a little bit better than a 50-50 chance that they're going to keep the priority and there's not going to be a double turn. But it's not much more than 50-50. And I think that there's that question mark, I think, is good for the game. What do you think about that?
I still think it's just the scoring.
Well, we'll get to the score.
Yes.
We'll get to the scoring. But what I just said, what do you think about what I just said?
I mean, yes, I get the fog of war, but I think they should narrow it down so it's like you can only get a double turn once or something so that when the double turn happens, it's not like double turn, you never get to go first again.
So it's like a once per battle?
Yes. Or maybe a twice per battle.
Well, twice per battle, that's, it's pretty rare to get 3 double turns.
Yeah.
You'd have to go second. You have to double turn from 1 to 2. Then you'd have to get double turned 2 to 3. Then you'd have to double turn 3 to 4. Yeah, I don't think you can double turn.
You can't double turn 3 times. The maximum is 2.
Get double turn 2 to 3. Then you double turn 3 to 4. Yeah, because you would double turn again 5 to 6, and there's no 6.
Yeah.
So
Warhammer get another round.
Maybe if you limited it to once, and then it was just I go, you go after that. I don't know. I like that there is that potential out there, and if you get double turned, there is potential to double turn back. So overall, I think it's now we're going to talk about some of the problems and some of the things you can expect, and there certainly are problems. But like I said, I think overall, I think it does more for the game. Now let's talk about some of the problems. You mentioned scoring. Why is it bad? Why is it bad?
It's happened to me several times when you get a double turn. Mm-hmm. Because say there's an objective right here. You have your guys here. My guys are like off in the corner. I can't get, on my turn, I walk towards you. I don't make a charge. You score. You get the double turn. You score again. I'm losing so many points. It's just impossible to make a comeback.
Well, it's not impossible to make a comeback
Hard.
because I'm not going 2 turns in a row and then we go back to I go, you go. I'm getting 2 turns in a row, and then you're getting the second half of that battle round, right? So you still get that second thing. But I think what you're talking about and what makes it sometimes very difficult is maybe we get into a big fight and somebody gets killed off an objective or makes a charge or whatever it is, and there's a big fight, and so they're tenuously holding on to the objective, but they barely scored. They've got 1 extra model on it, or they barely cleared out a chaff unit so that they control it now, but there's a big force coming in to take that objective back.
Double turn.
But then if I get the double turn,
You get more points.
I can basically keep that objective and score it again without
having to
risk. Right? Without risk at all. Because if I do nothing.
Not the game.
If I do nothing.
Not the game risk.
Right. Yeah. If I do nothing, then I score it again.
Yes.
Right?
There's just
because
nothing
you
can
don't
do.
have an opportunity to move on to the objective.
Yeah.
So that is a problem. And it can lead to sort of lopsided scores where the fact that I barely cling on to something means
you get a million more
I
points.
get a lot more points.
Yes.
So hitting the double at certain points is certainly worth more. What else do you think?
It could lead to you attacking first twice. Because
what do you mean?
if you're say you have the second turn, when it's your turn, you attack with a unit first in combat.
Right?
So if you get a double turn, you'll be able to attack first yet again.
That's certainly true.
That can happen.
I
in
think
a
that's
big
not
fight.
such a big deal just because combat is alternating anyway.
Yeah,
So that's not such a big deal.
but it is a thing.
But I think that the scoring is a problematic. I think shooting is tough.
Oh, especially for Caradron.
Shooting, yeah, Caradon's an all-shooting army, but shooting tends, not always, but tends to be a little bit more powerful. And I think because you only get to shoot on your turn, so you get to shoot over only 5 battle rounds, whereas you could be in combat 10 times in a
Game.
match, right? So shooting tends to have a little more rend. It tends to be a little better, not always, but tends to. And getting 2 shooting phases in a row, especially if you have a shooting heavy list like Caradron.
Or a Zinch list that has a million acolytes.
Yeah, or we've got a couple of shooting heavy lists, but there are lots out there, right? that can be pretty devastating because shooting, unlike combat, you just hope the other guy rolls bad.
Yes.
I mean, you do get saves usually, but
unless you just have
you can't attack back, right?
Yeah.
You just sort of hope. You're like, please, please roll bad.
And please let me roll good.
So yeah, I think that can be a problem with it. I think it also matters about when you double turn.
Yes.
Because a double turn super late in the game, not usually as important, but if you double turn...
Like round 2.
Yeah, if
you,
2 to 3 tends to be a pretty big double turn. Because that's when in the first round, the armies are just meeting up. Mm-hmm. And then the second battle round tends to be where things are really heating up. And then the third battle round is like...
chaos.
That's when a lot of big decisions are being made, right?
Yes.
That's when big units are falling. That's when
things are starting to
lines are being crushed, right? And the shape of the battle is coming up. And so if you can double turn between 2 and 3, you can really
punish
it. Yeah. Well, not just shooting, but I mean, you can, by going 2 times in a row, you get your spells twice, right?
You can move again.
You get your movement again. Exactly. So that can be a very big time. Now, one thing I will say is, it is a big advantage to have the double turn often.
Oh, yes.
But I don't think it is always game determinative. Sometimes it is.
Yes.
Sometimes it is.
Several times it has happened.
But I don't think it always is. I think sometimes you get doubled and it gives you an opportunity to play from the hole, right? You're a little bit back and you have to
get going.
You've got to play out of it, play out of the pit you've dug yourself or that the dice have dug you. So I think that leads to some pretty epic stories and some pretty epic moments sometimes, and that's good too. I mean, that's why certainly why or at least why I play the game, is for those epic moments that you can talk about and say, hey, remember that time when?
Same. I still remember that one time when a Linder killed. I think it was a Linder when she killed a fancy sword man for Sinesh. I forget his name.
Sigvald. So yeah. Lots of stuff like that. So a couple of ways to maybe take the edge off. Well, first, the matched play rules for the Realm of Gur, the General's Handbook Battle Pack, says if you double not if you double, but it basically says whoever goes second in battle round 3 gets to remove an objective.
Yes.
That is a huge benefit.
Oh, yes.
In fact, we've played games where I've had the opportunity to double, and I don't take it because I want to do the objective.
Snag the objective.
Right. So that's huge. So that's a way to disincentivize the double turn. Doesn't always apply to the double. Doesn't always, it only applies in that one battle round. So it's not a perfect fit, but it's there. I think another thing that they could do is they could make scoring at the end of the battle round.
Yes, that's what we need. That's what I'm complaining for. We need that.
I think that would be good because you'd have the scoring, and not only you wouldn't get double scoring in a double turn.
Oh!
And I think it would actually incentivize people to go last.
Yes.
To go second in the battle round.
Yes.
Because then the other person's sort of locked in to where they are, and you can look at the lay of the land and say, all right, now that I know where you are, now that you're locked in, I can go there, I can stop you here, I can do whatever. So I think going second, and that way I can, you're scoring, you would score this, but I'm going to come in and stop you. So it gives the person going second a lot more control. I think end of battle round scoring might be a good idea.
Yes.
But I think overall, if we were, this would be something that they would have to do in a new edition. I mean, this isn't something they could come out and, with an FAQ or anything.
No, it'd be a new edition.
But I would really like to see alternating activations. Where instead of I do my whole hero phase, then I do my whole movement phase, then I do my whole shooting phase, where both players just picked back and forth. So maybe you did sort of maybe hero phase could be one side or the other, or maybe you alternate units in the hero phase who's going to cast a spell or chant a prayer or whatever.
Or maybe
but then when it comes to movement, I move a guy, and then you move a guy, and then I move a guy, and then we go to the shooting phase. I shoot with my guys, you shoot with your guy, and we pick back and forth.
But the person who goes second should get some kind of debuff.
Well, we'll see. And then in combat, then in charging, we both charge into each other. Mm-hmm. combat basically works that way already, and
Yeah.
so does Battleshock. So that's what I would like to see. They already use it in Warcry, alternating activation, right? They already use it in Kill Team.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's a completely foreign concept. I think that would, again, they'd have to change some things. It's more of an addition thing. I think War Scrolls would have to change and things like that. But I would really like to see alternate activation. What do you think of that?
That I would like, except for what I would do is you would say if you have a level 2 wizard, you would have to choose between casting or trying to unbind or dispel.
Oh, sure.
You have to like divvy up things.
Yeah, with the hero phase, it would be a little bit. Yeah, I'd have to think about how that worked.
Yeah.
But
Then again,
what about everything else with movement, shooting, charging?
I don't think you should alternate movement or charge. I think you should only alternate shooting. But the person who, like, say it's my turn and I'm shooting. The person who it's not their turn, gets like -1 rend or -1 attack or something to a minimum of 1.
Well, I get what you're saying. I think that might end up adding a lot of complication if you have to remember every turn, oh yeah, I get extra this, extra that, depending on which turn I'm going. But I think, we were talking before about one of the things about the double turn is you get to move twice, right? With alternate activation, that wouldn't matter anymore because we'd be each moving on each other's turns. And that works in Warcry, right?
But in Warcry, it's you move and fight.
Yep.
Because you get 2 activation points.
And you could even do something like that in Age of Sigmar, where in Warcry you're moving individual models. In Age of Sigmar you're moving units.
Bricks.
But it's the same sort of idea. So I could see, like I said, that's a lot of rules changes from current AOS. But I think it'd be a good idea to see a little bit more heading down alternate activations. It would also make it more interesting to play because you don't have long stretches where you're just waiting for your opponent to do stuff.
Yeah.
Long
And completely get rid of
Daughters of Cain and Tzeentch hero phases where everyone's casting a spell and the other person's just like
cat videos.
Cat videos. Just watching cat videos, waiting for their turn. So now with all that said,
cat videos.
with all that said, I think I mentioned it before, but I think when it comes down to it, I think the double turn, again, from a casual perspective, I think there might be competitive people who definitely disagree with that.
Oh, yeah.
But from a casual perspective, I think the double turn gives more than it takes. And I think the game is better for it because of the uncertainty that it promotes and because of the narrative situations it creates. It is better than a strict back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You roll 1 dice at the beginning to decide who goes first, and then that's it for the rest of the game. So that's my opinion on it. Your final analysis?
I say you own the only.
No. What do you think? Double turn, final analysis.
I'm starting to lean towards not as good until they make some changes. I'm gonna say it's not good.
Okay. Cool.
Until I see some changes in the double turn.
Until I see some Drake is
bad.
demanding changes.
I need changes.
All right, cool. Well, definitely let us know what you think. I would love to hear what people's experiences are with a double turn. If people absolutely atrociously hate it and never play with it and think it's the worst thing ever to come to AOS. And if people love it and think it's the best thing and it shows why this game is the greatest above all others, put it down in the comments. I'm super interested to know what people's thoughts on, and if we are, in the realm of what's normal, or if we've got bizarro opinions from Bizarro Land.
I think here's just a random thing. I think I'm just gonna take a random guess on what the next realm is gonna be.
Okay. Totally unrelated to our video. Drake wants to make a new guess.
Yeah.
All right. What's your guess?
I think the next realm that we're gonna fight in is Chaman.
Okay, that's Drake's laying it down. All right, well, thank you so much for watching. This has been Battle Ready.